Welcome to another episode of The Inquisitive Engineer. Have you ever wondered how socket wrenches work? I have this old one here. I broke last weekend, so I decided I was going to tear into it to see what went wrong, so you can join in with me and see how the internals are. I'm also going to tear into a newer one and see how the designs have changed over the years. I did notice that the two housings are very different in their shape, and I was curious if there have been design improvements since this one here was made probably in the 1960s, and this one here was made about 2010. So let's get to it. So we'll go ahead and tear into this old one first. So as you can see on the back of the lever to turn it to counterclockwise or clockwise, there's a half moon hole that lines up with that half moon there. And so when that goes back on top, when you turn this, what happens is you're turning this cam as such. And so as you can hopefully see here, is when I go ahead and turn it this way now, those gears can move the cam and let it ratchet, and that's the clicking sound you heard. But now when I go back the other direction, that tooth engages on that cam and won't let it turn. So what's happening is that tooth there putting compression on this cam, which is pushing it into the housing of the wrench. Now if I go ahead and turn it the other direction, it all happens in reverse, where it'll ratchet and click the opposite direction. And then when I try to go ahead and turn it, that tooth is now putting compression on the cam and pushing it into the housing on this side. Now for that cam to stay in place, you'll notice a hole here and a hole here. You may be able to see it there. There is a ball bearing on a spring, and that makes sure that this cam stays in position when you turn the lever. We can go ahead and pull that out of there. And there you can see the little steel ball, and that rides in these grooves like this. And then there is a hole down in the wrench that has the spring that pushes and keeps tension on the ball. And I think what my problem was over years of oil changes, a lot of dirt and grime got down in here, as you can see, and it didn't let that cam fully engage on a tooth when I broke it. I'm trying to find it here, if I can find the tooth that I broke off. Right there. So I sheared that tooth off right there. And here is actually the end of the tooth. So if you notice, those teeth are pretty decent size. And with that cam in there, it has a lot of engagement, but only has engagement on one tooth at a time. So I'm curious, when we tear into the new wrench, has this design changed over the decades to make a better and stronger wrench? We'll find out. So now we'll go ahead and tear into the new wrench. But I was actually very curious about why the design over the years has changed, where the old wrench is very, very neck down in this area, but the new wrench is much beefier, say, out in these shoulders, and if that is going to have something to do with how the internal mechanism works. And so as you can see, this design is actually quite different than the old one. You can actually see just how big the teeth are in the old wrench versus the new wrench. So the new wrench the teeth are ratcheting and actually pushing, say, this cam down, and then when I try to apply torque to it, it's actually shoving this cam against the sidewall over here, which would explain why these shoulders are much beefier on this new wrench than on the old wrench. I also noticed is you have at least 3 or 4 teeth that have real solid engagement on this cam when you tighten instead of just one. So this will certainly add to the strength of the wrench. Even though the teeth are smaller, you're having multiple teeth to engage instead of just one single tooth, such as the one I busted the tip off of. Let's see if we can take this apart a little further. So you can see the gears are very small. And there's our cam. And then down in here, instead of a ball as a detent, it is a pin that is a detent, and that is on a spring. And so when I turn the lever on the other side, it's moving that detent to the left and to the right. Let's see if we can't get this back together here. And so now if I, a little quick, if I go and turn it to the other side, this works the same way, where it's allowed to skip the gears that way. But when I go ahead and try to turn it, it shoves this cam up against the sidewall here with multiple tooth engagement. And quite honestly, taking a better look, probably all these teeth are very, very well engaged while I'm turning the wrench. So you have about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 teeth engaging versus a single one in the old wrench. So this is going to make this ratchet much stronger and much harder to break than the old wrench, which would make sense. You would think that designs would get better over the years and make the tool harder to break. So there you have it. There is how a ratchet works and how it can turn in both directions. So as you can see, they work in similar fashion, but there is design changes that are significantly different from the old one to the new one, with the new one most likely being stronger than the old one. And that did take play into why this housing on the new one is much wider than the housing on the old one. So thank you for watching, and as always, stay curious.